Hello and welcome to Rise and Unwind. My name is Dan. You know, each and every week I talk to people from across the country about things you could do in your neighborhood. And on this week's show,
Stephen King wrote this book in 1969.
Every 3 hours somewhere in America, a person or a vehicle is being struck by a train.
You ever wonder how kids really learn confidence and teamwork outside of the classroom? For a lot of families, Cub Scouts has become part of that journey. So joining me today is Roger A. Krone, President and CEO of Scouting America and an Eagle Scout himself, to share how Cub Scouts can help kids grow in ways to go beyond school and sports. Welcome to the show, Roger. How are you, my friend?
Hey, it's great to be here, Dan. Thanks for the time.
So what are some of the life skills kids pick up in Scouts that they may not always get in school?
Yeah, you know, school's great about book learning and math and history and English. And, you know, every year you have to make, you know, achievements and you move on to the next year. You know, what we do in scouting is we get the kids off the couch, away from the screen, outdoors, into a social setting where the scouts are having fun and they're doing outdoor activities and in games, and they're doing hikes and they're camping. But what we're really teaching them is underneath that are life skills. We call the outdoors our classroom, but the lessons are really around leadership, character development, citizenship. We tend to throw projects at them. We send tasks. They learn social skills. They learn how to work together. They know how to build a team, right? They know how to problem solve, and they learn respect for each other because they know that sometimes the best answers to these challenges come from collaboration. And we think those life skills are important as the book learning that they're learning in school.
Families are busier than ever with school, sports, and other activities. How does Cub Scouts fit into that mix?
Yeah, I like to say scouting is a great number one, a number two, or number three. So when I was a scout, by the way, we were busy back then. You know, I was involved in sports and the church and choir and scouting. And you know, when I say number one, it's great if that's your number one priority and you know you make every meeting and you're on every camp out, that's great. But our program is flexible enough that if you have to miss a meeting or you don't make every camp out or you don't quite make an achievement, it's okay. And we have been evolving and redesigning our program over the past 115 years to meet the needs of the kids today in the way that kids learn. So we're more digital, we're more multilingual than we've ever been, right? And we realize, and our leaders and our volunteers realize that they're doing more than one thing. And so they may not make the Wednesday meeting. Now, I would also say the other side of that is also important, is they will be multitaskers forever. And so learning to plan ahead, learning to do more than one thing, learning to prioritize, right? Learning that if you've got a meeting Wednesday night, you need to get your homework done Wednesday afternoon. Oh, but if you have a sports practice Wednesday afternoon, then maybe during study hall, right, during the day, you got to get your homework done, which says don't put it off. And those lessons, learning how to do that, learning how to prioritize, learning to get stuff done, those are things that will pay huge dividends when you're an adult. Because yeah, you say, well, I don't multitask as an adult. We all multitask as an adult. Learning those lessons early will pay dividends later on.
And outdoor adventures seem to play a big role. What kind of experiences do kids get to enjoy?
Yeah, you know, we've always been known as the outdoor adventure, camping, high adventure. In the Cub Scout program, we've brought more of those adventures down into Cub Scouts. So, you know, as a high schooler, you can imagine we go camping, canoeing, we climb mountains, we do caving. And in my day, the Cub program was more arts and crafts. And due to the demand from our kids and our parents, we do a lot more outdoor activities at the Cub Scout level. Now we still do the Pinewood Derby, which we're well known for, but we kind of do it in the winter when maybe the outdoors isn't as much fun. But we do overnights at the Cub level. We do a lot of day trips. So many of our camps have built what I like to call Cub worlds, right? Our camps are known for traditional camping and outdoor activities, but now we have built some structures. It might be a fort, could be a castle, could be something that looks like a ship. so that we can offer to a Cub a Saturday program. So they go out in the morning, they have a trail lunch, they do some fun stuff. Maybe they plan like a sailing trip around the world, and that's a project, and we have them sort of problem solve how they would do that. But they're home for dinner on Saturday night. Again, we do have some outdoor overnights in the Cub Scout program, but we have just learned that the elementary school kids, they want to be outdoors just like the middle school and high school kids.
In your view, how does scouting help prepare kids for the bigger challenges that they're going to face later on?
Yeah, well, we've talked on the social skills and how important it is to work together as a group. But, you know, we also teach them problem solving and organizational skills. And like the first budget I ever prepared, you know, I never thought about it, was I had to buy the food for a camp out. So, you know, we passed the hat. I ended up with so much money, and I had to figure out how to buy so many meals, 5 meals out of the money that we raised. My first schedule that I ever put together was in scouting, interesting enough. Oh, wait, we're going to go for a hike, and then we're going to have lunch, and then we're going to have a campfire. The duty roster, right? Division of labor, organization. You know, one youth is going to go get the firewood. One youth is going to set up the tent. It's amazing. My career has been in program and project management, and it's the exact same skills that I learned as a scout. There's a lot more zeros, and there may be more months and years to the schedule, but those kind of problem solving, project management, perseverance skills are important as an adult, and you learn those in scouting.
And finally, where can families go if they'd like to learn more or maybe even get their kids involved?
Yeah, well, we've gone digital like everyone else. We have a great webpage, beascout.org. And if you go there, you'll be welcomed by an AI chatbot called Scoutly. Scoutly's purpose is to answer questions. So you can type it in, you can actually verbally ask Scoutly a question. And if you want to find a unit for an age cohort near you, you can ask Scoutly that as well. And Scoutly will tell you what's going on in your local neighborhood, how you can come and visit, and how you can join a unit.
Roger, thanks for joining us this morning.
Great, Dan. Thank you so much. Thanks for the time.
Most of us think of a bruise as no big deal, but for people living with a rare condition called ITP, it could be a warning sign of something serious. September is National ITP Awareness Month, and just ahead of it, the FDA approved a new treatment that can make a real difference for patients. So joining me today is Dr. Amit Mehta, a board-certified hematologist and oncologist. Welcome to the show, doctor. How are you?
Very good. Good morning. Thanks a lot, Dan.
All right. For those who may not know, what exactly is ITP and what are some of its symptoms?
Yes, so pleasure to be on and talk to you. And ITP is a serious blood condition. It stands for immune thrombocytopenic purpura, but easier to say ITP. And it's a serious blood condition by which the blood platelet cells, one of the main cells in the human bloodstream, go down to very low levels or even dangerous levels, and that can lead to bleeding or bruising in a patient. So normally the platelet cells protect your body from bleeding and bruising. But if they go very low, as you can imagine, you don't have that same defense. So it's easier to have serious bleeding or bruising. So unexplained bleeding or bruising, persistent or serious bleeding and bruising can happen when somebody has ITP. And in addition to those main, like chief symptoms of bleeding and bruising, people can also have symptoms of fatigue, psychological stress, anxiety, depression, living with such a condition, the burden of having these kind of conditions, as well as issues affecting their quality of life, their ability to work, their stamina, their concentration, these kind of things. So a serious condition for multiple reasons, but it is fundamentally a blood disorder, ITP.
So why is National ITP Awareness Month such an important time for patients and their families?
Yeah, so firstly, thanks for bringing it up and mentioning it, because coincidentally, September is National ITP Awareness Month. So as a physician, I feel that these kind of awareness months are good in general, because we bring positive attention to patients who are living with the condition, people who need better therapies, better results, those kind of things, as well as those people out there who may have such symptoms and are seeking an answer but don't have an answer yet. So I think it brings awareness for those people to get help and get knowledge about things that may be out there that might explain their particular symptoms or issues. And in general, these kind of awareness months fuel research, fuel newer therapy discoveries, things that can ultimately advance the field, help Americans across the country get benefit when they have a condition like ITP.
And a new treatment option was recently approved. What makes this approach a little different?
Yes, exactly. So fundamentally, ITP has historically been a complex condition to treat. So I'm here also happy to be here as a spokesperson on behalf of Sanofi because a therapy just got approved by the FDA, as you mentioned, and this particular medication is called Wayrilz, spelled Wayrilz. But basically, it's a pill therapy that works on a particular pathway in human cells that has become imbalanced or dysregulated in this condition, ITP. So it's a very specific targeted therapy, pill therapy, by which we can get to the root cause of the condition directly by inhibiting or counteracting this abnormal imbalanced pathway in cells involved with ITP. So the way this medication was approved by the FDA just a couple weeks ago was that patients who are adult patients with persistent or chronic ITP who have had an insufficient response to a previous therapy are now eligible to get this medication. So like a lot of these things, of course, in medical studies and so forth are done to see if a medicine does indeed work in a randomized trial setting. So in large phase 3 randomized trials, what we found is that patients who take Wayrilz have a rapid improvement and sustained improvement in platelet counts by taking this Wayrilz medication. Other things were also studied, like the impact on symptoms like fatigue and other stressors that patients are living with. But these are the key results that were found for Wayrilz.
So how can this impact people who haven't responded well to other treatments?
Yeah, so the way it can help is that fundamentally this works in a different way, a unique way that wasn't previously available for ITP. So we have other therapies that have been approved that we have been using over the years for ITP, and they can help the platelet count increase, but they don't get to the root cause of the condition. And there's this immune imbalance. It's fundamentally an autoimmune condition as well, ITP is. And so by giving this medication Wayrilz and targeting the underlying pathway, the name of the pathway, by the way, is called the BTK pathway. It's a particular pathway, becomes dysregulated, becomes imbalanced, and we're now able to target it specifically with this Wayrilz medication. So in other words, it works completely differently than medicines we have been using and helps in a much deeper way in terms of what's affecting the patient, why is it happening in the patient's body in the first place. So that's the hope, and that's why it can work when other therapies may not have worked before or worked suboptimally before.
And if somebody wants to learn more, get resources, where should they go?
Yeah, so for a few important things, like, for example, side effects that can happen. Some of the common side effects, by the way, can be things like nausea, headache, abdominal pain, diarrhea. So these kind of side effects and other things that you have to monitor for as a physician, a patient should know. There's a website easily you can go to called Wayrilz.com, Wayrilz.com. So patients, their family members, loved ones can go and read about all these information, including details, full prescribing information, side effects, etc., by this website.
Dr. Mehta, well, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Dan. Really appreciate it.
Every 3 hours in the United States, there's a train collision involving a person or a vehicle. It's a serious reminder of how important it is to stay alert around railroad tracks. This week is C-Tracks Think Train Week, focused on helping families and communities make safer choices. So joining me today is John Fleps, Chief Safety Officer at Norfolk Southern. Welcome to the show, John. How are you?
I'm good, Dan. Thanks for having me on today.
Okay. This is just going to increase my fear of trains that I already have. So why do you think rail safety is such an important issue for families right now?
Yeah, it's something that people take for granted, to be honest. You think it's never going to happen to me. Trains are big, they're loud, they're slow. I'm going to know it's coming. I will be able to get out of the way in time. And the reality is every single day and really every 3 hours somewhere in America, a person or a vehicle is being struck by a train. Over 1,000 people every year are killed being struck by trains. So we use this week, C-Tracks Think Train Week, to help get the word out, heighten awareness, really get a conversation, get some tips in front of people that they might not have known. And ultimately, it's about saving lives.
So what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about trains and railroad crossings?
Yeah, so one important detail that a lot of folks don't know is that railroad property is private property almost exclusively. So a tip is if you find yourself within 50 feet of any tracks, you are likely trespassing illegally. And besides the fact that it's against the law, it could get you in trouble, it could get you killed. So whenever you have that temptation to use railroad property, if you think, oh, they don't run trains here very often, never succumb to that temptation. Never allow someone you know, someone you care about to fall into that trap. A common issue that we see is folks want to use the cool background of a railroad track as a backdrop for say, graduation pictures or wedding photos. And unfortunately, what could be and should be a great day can end in tragedy because we're using railroad property to do something that it was never intended to do, which was be a backdrop for a picture. And I know this is personal for a lot of people. Headphones, they are really great at drowning out noise. I can pop mine in and my kids were screaming 1 second. The next I can't hear them at all. They're also capable of drowning out the noise of a train that's blaring a horn, bearing down on you. And that's something that a lot of people take for granted. A railroad track could feel like a great walking path or a running path. Don't ever use it in that capacity, and never allow your headphones to dull your awareness to what is a life-threatening reality.
I actually had an old boss that did pass away from jogging on the railroad track, and he had his AirPods in and wasn't able to hear anything, and it came from behind. So, that was a long time ago. I hear that you guys are putting a lot of focus into prevention. What are some of the steps that you guys are taking?
Yeah, so talking with people about reflexes. And again, complacency. You think, it's not going to happen to me. I've never seen a train at this location in time. I'm going to be able to get out of the way before it gets to where I'm at. If a train can see you and you're in a bad position, by the time it hits the brakes, it's not going to be able to stop before it gets to where you're at. So being very, very, very aware. Again, it's why we call it see tracks, think train. When you see crossbucks, when you see those gates, even if they're not flashing, even if they're not coming down, even if you've never seen a train there before, approach, prepare to stop, look both ways, ensure that there is no risk. If the gates are starting to come down, those lights are flashing, reflex is stomp on the brakes, not the gas. Do not try to beat a train. Do not try to go around the gates. Ensure if you are going to cross the tracks that you have plenty of space on the other side to get completely across, that you're never going to be in a compromising position that you can't get out of.
And if somebody sees something that's wrong on the tracks, what is probably the right thing to do?
So first thing and foremost is to get out of the way, get out of harm's way. If a vehicle stalls or gets stuck on the tracks for whatever reason, get yourself to a place of safety. Then a very, very critical detail that most people aren't aware of is knowing where to look. So there is a rectangle, it's blue, it's called the ENS or Emergency Notification Sign, posted at every single grade crossing in America. It has two critical pieces of information. The first is a phone number. You can call it. It will pipe you straight to that railroad's dispatch center, bypassing any middle people. Then it has a unique identifier on that sign that will let that dispatcher know exactly where you are, exactly where that crossing is, and enable them to take responsive action as quickly as possible. You could save somebody's life just by knowing where to look.
John, thanks for joining us this morning. Where can people go get more tips and resources on rail safety?
So check out Norfolk Southern's website first. You got norfolksouthern.com/rail safety. Also, Operation Lifesaver at oli.org has a ton of great resources for a classroom, a small group, for your friends. Please take this conversation to your dinner table tonight. Take it to a group of friends that may not be aware of these things. You could save somebody's life.
John, I really want to thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me on.
Fall is here, and while we enjoy the cooler air, this season can be especially tough for those living with asthma. Joining us this morning is Dr. Justin Greiwe, an asthma and allergy specialist, here to explain why this time of year is considered peak asthma season and what patients could do to stay ahead of it. Welcome to the show, Dr. Greiwe. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
All right, so why do doctors call fall the peak asthma season, and what makes this time of year such a challenge for people living with asthma?
Good question. We consider August through December a critical time of the year for most patients with asthma in the U.S. due to this heightened exposure to seasonal asthma triggers and increased risk for asthma attacks. But in particular, the third week of September is what many call asthma peak week, and that's really when emergency room visits and hospitalizations tend to be the highest of the year. So each fall, the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America publishes its annual Asthma Capitals Report and ranks the 100 largest U.S. metro areas by how challenging they are to live with asthma. And I believe you guys rank in the 11th in the country. So a lot of triggers and potential flare-ups can occur this fall with patients living in your area.
And for somebody who has asthma or maybe has a loved one that has it, what are some of the most common symptoms we should be watching out for during the season? And why do we see such a jump in attacks and hospital visits right now?
So people with asthma, I'd say the most common symptoms that they experience are shortness of breath, chest tightness, wheezing, and cough. And these symptoms happen when the airways are inflamed and when they are tightened. And so it's important to know that this underlying inflammation can exist even in the absence of symptoms. So there's always that predilection for a flare-up at any time. And so really, making sure that patients are sticking with their treatment regimens prescribed by their doctors to make sure that they're staying on top of things. And it's a ubiquitous condition. About 22 million adults in the U.S. live with asthma, and about 9 million asthma attacks and over 700,000 ER visits linked to asthma flare-ups. So this is definitely a major issue for a lot of people that are in your audience and can be life-threatening. So it's really important to take this seriously. And with this specific season, there's so many triggers that can really make people feel worse, whether it's the pollen with ragweed or mold, the weather shifts or barometric pressure changes where I live in Cincinnati are big right now. With back to school, viruses and bacteria can trigger things, pollution, stress. A lot of things can make people feel worse with their allergies and asthma. And so it's really important to recognize what triggers you specifically and talk with your doctor about what you can do to prevent flare-ups. So that's why we're really serious about this peak week, and we're collaborating with AstraZeneca to raise awareness about this. And the idea is to really encourage your audience members to talk with their doctors now, review their treatment plans, and know what to do before things spike this fall so that they can reduce their risk for an attack.
So when it comes to prevention, what are some of the practical steps people could take to lower their chances of having an attack? And you mentioned there's been talk about a new rescue approach. How does that work differently?
Yeah, I mean, asthma is a chronic condition, so it requires constant attention. So when we look at treatment options for asthma, in the past, especially for rescue treatment, we would rely on what's called a traditional rescue inhaler that just works on the tightening of the airways. And that would provide some relief by opening up the airways, but it didn't treat that underlying inflammation we mentioned earlier. So over time, we've relied on these traditional rescue inhalers, which can sometimes leave people vulnerable to an attack because it's not addressing the root cause of inflammation that's building in the asthmatic lungs. So it's important to address rescue now with an anti-inflammatory approach that treats both the constriction and the inflammation. And that's what some of these new inhalers do, which is a great innovation in the asthma space because there really hasn't been much in the rescue inhaler space for a long time. And so other things you can do to reduce your chances of flare-ups is understanding your triggers. If you need to get allergy tested, if you think you have allergy triggers, avoiding those barometric pressure shifts or weather changes, protecting yourselves against viruses and bacteria if you can. So all those things can help reduce your risks. And if you want to dig deeper and learn more about especially anti-inflammatory rescue strategies, there's a great site called modernageofrescue.com that can be really helpful. And also organizations like the AAFA that I mentioned earlier offer educational resources and really support research to improve asthma care for patients. And so it's really our goal to protect people from having flare-ups this fall so that everyone can have a healthy, happy fall season.
And one more time, if somebody wants more information or resources, where are the best places to go?
Modernageofrescue.com is great. So that's a really nice place. And then, of course, talking with your primary care doctor about your treatment plan. And if you need a referral, getting to a board-certified allergy immunologist or pulmonologist to discuss about asthma treatments in more detail.
Doctor, thanks for joining us this morning.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Stephen King fans, this one is for you. His very first novel, The Long Walk, is finally on the big screen. From Francis Lawrence, the director behind The Hunger Games, comes a chilling thriller that asks the haunting question, how far would you go? One of the emotional anchors of this film is Judy Greer, playing Miss Garrity, the devoted mother of Ray, the story's central character. Judy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Okay, this story has been a favorite of King fans for decades. What stood out to you about The Long Walk when you first read the script?
I was really scared of having to see these boys lose their lives. It stood out to me how, I guess what was so interesting was that Stephen King wrote this book in 1969, and we're making this movie in 2024 when we shot it, but 2025 when it comes out, and like how still relevant it is, and how you can tell a story about universal themes and that it works no matter what year it comes out. It's always a story about connection, about, I mean, to me, like I see a lot of positive in this story. I see the beautiful relationships that are built, the grace that these men offer each other, and the love and connection.
Your character, Miss Garrity, she brings so much heart to this intense survival tale. How did you approach balancing her love for her son with the fear of letting him go?
Well,
that much I can see.
I felt, how did I balance my love for him with letting him go? You know, I have a stepson who's 25, and as much as I want to control his life and I want him to do everything that I think he should do, because I know that I'm right all the time about everything, we can't control our kids. We have to let them go. We have to give them agency. I mean, I think that's a really literal answer. I think in the world of this story, you know, she doesn't have a choice. And I think these boys don't have a choice. It's voluntary, but you have to sign up for the long walk. So there's really nothing that can be done. But I balance like trusting that I suppose what's meant to happen will happen. But I also feel like Ginny, that's my character's name, she doesn't really balance it. Like, she understands the depth and the gravity of what is going on in a way that she knows her son doesn't yet.
And the long walk, it doesn't just thrill, it kind of leaves audiences with the big question about sacrifice, hope, and survival. What do you hope moviegoers Okay, what do you think moviegoers carry with them when they kind of leave the theater?
I love the theater. After I saw it, the first time, I've seen it twice, I was sobbing and screaming at the screen. Thankfully, I was the only one watching it in the screening room, screaming, why? But I left feeling so much love and so much hope in my heart. I guess that's what I think, what I hope audiences will feel as it starts to really stick to your bones. You realize it's a story about love and connection and hope. And Peter McVree's the character played by David Johnson says, choose love. And it is like gutting when he says it to me.
All right. I'm kind of heartbroken right now.
I love this movie. I really do. I mean, I think it's so beautiful when you really like take away the horror of what we watch. We think like all we have is our connection to other people. All we have is our love for other people. I mean, and this movie is like kind of a little microcosm of life. Like we start walking and then at some point it ends. All that's there is really like trying to connect to people that you don't know and loving strangers maybe.
All right. And everything in between, like trying to connect on the way. All right.
Yeah.
The Long Walk is in theaters now. For showtimes, head to longwalk.movie and check your local listings to experience this powerful adaptation of Stephen King's first novel on the big screen. Judy, I love you to death. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for Rise Unwind. I want to thank you for tuning in and checking out the show. If you actually want to be on the show, go to our website, riseunwindtv.com. Fill out the form, send it in, and maybe you could be on a future episode. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. Just look up at Rise Unwind. And until next week, that was Rise Unwind.